Beloved brothers and sisters, today we gather to open our hearts to the powerful lessons found in the book of 1 Kings, a book that begins with the glory of a united kingdom and ends with division and decline, yet through it all the hand of God is never absent, and the voice of his prophets never silent. It is a book that reveals the cost of obedience and the danger of idolatry. It reminds us that righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. The book of 1 Kings begins with an aged King David drawing near to death, and in his final days a power struggle erupts as Adonijah seeks to take the throne without his father's blessing, but the prophet Nathan and Bathsheba intervene, reminding David of his promise that Solomon would reign. And so David declares that Solomon shall sit upon the throne of his father, and Solomon is anointed king of Israel with great rejoicing. David charges Solomon with a solemn command, "Be thou strong therefore, and shew thyself a man, and keep the charge of the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways, to keep his statutes and his commandments and his judgments and his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses, that thou mayest prosper in all that thou doest, and whithersoever thou turnest thyself." David dies, and Solomon takes the throne, and the kingdom is established in his hand. And in the early days of his reign Solomon goes to Gibeon and offers sacrifices, and the Lord appears to him in a dream, asking, "What shall I give thee?" And Solomon answers with humility, "Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people, that I may discern between good and bad, for who is able to judge this thy so great a people?" And the speech pleased the Lord, and he gave Solomon not only wisdom, but also riches and honor and peace, so that there was none like him in all the earth. And Solomon becomes renowned for his wisdom, rendering judgments that astound the people, such as the case of the 2 women and the living child. And Solomon begins the great work of building the house of the Lord in Jerusalem, a temple of gold and cedar and precious stones, a house not for man's glory, but for the worship of the God of Israel. And when the temple is completed, Solomon prays a prayer of dedication, crying out to heaven that the Lord would hear the prayers of his people from this holy place, and forgive and bless and restore them. And the glory of the Lord fills the house like a cloud. And the Lord appears to Solomon a second time, and confirms the covenant, saying, "If thou wilt walk before me, as David thy father walked, in integrity of heart, and in uprightness, to do according to all that I have commanded thee, then I will establish thy throne upon Israel forever. But if ye shall at all turn from following me, then will I cut off Israel out of the land, and this house shall become a byword among all nations." For a time Solomon reigns in peace and prosperity, his wisdom known far and wide. Even the Queen of Sheba comes to hear his words and behold his riches, and declares that the half had not been told. But as the years go on, Solomon's heart is turned away by his many wives who worship strange gods, and he builds high places and altars for them, and does evil in the sight of the Lord. And the Lord is angry with Solomon, and raises up adversaries against him, and declares that the kingdom shall be divided in the days of his son, but for David's sake 1 tribe shall remain to him. When Solomon dies, his son Rehoboam takes the throne, and the people ask for mercy from the heavy burdens of their father. But Rehoboam listens not to the wisdom of the old men, but to the counsel of the young, saying, "My father chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions." And so the 10 tribes rebel, and the kingdom is divided, with Jeroboam ruling the northern tribes and Rehoboam in the south over Judah. Jeroboam fears that the people will return to the house of David if they go to Jerusalem to worship. So he makes golden calves and sets them up in Bethel and Dan, saying, "Behold thy gods, O Israel." And this sin becomes a snare to him and to the people, and provokes the Lord to anger. And prophets begin to rise, warning of judgment, and calling the people back to covenant and righteousness. But they harden their hearts and walk after the idols of the nations. And the kings of Israel do evil, one after another, shedding innocent blood, and leading the people further into rebellion. In the days of Ahab king of Israel, and his wife Jezebel, the worship of Baal spreads like fire, and the prophet Elijah stands alone on Mount Carmel, and calls the people to choose this day whom they will serve, saying, "If the Lord be God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him." And he calls down fire from heaven, and the Lord answers by fire, and the people fall on their faces, saying, "The Lord, He is the God, the Lord, He is the God." Elijah prays, and the rain returns to the land after years of drought. And he flees to Horeb, where the Lord speaks to him not in the wind or the earthquake or the fire, but in a still small voice. And the Lord tells him that he is not alone, that 7,000 have not bowed the knee to Baal. Elijah anoints Elisha to be prophet in his place, and continues to challenge kings and speak the word of the Lord. And though the kings rage, and Jezebel plots his death, the Lord protects his servant, and takes him up to heaven in a whirlwind of fire. Church, the book of 1 Kings shows us that God is sovereign over nations, and over kings, and over prophets. It shows us the blessings of obedience, and the curses of rebellion. It shows us the danger of compromise, and the faithfulness of a remnant who will not bow to Baal. It teaches us that wisdom begins with the fear of the Lord, that leadership must be grounded in truth and justice, that the temple of the Lord must not only be built with hands, but honored with hearts that obey. And though the kingdom divided, and the kings fell and idols defiled the land, yet God remained faithful to his covenant, preserving a line through which the Messiah would come. From the throne of David through the failures of man would come Jesus, Christ, the true and eternal King, not seated in a temple made with hands, but seated at the right hand of the Father, reigning in righteousness and truth. Let us then learn from the rise and fall of kings. Let us fear the Lord and serve him in sincerity and truth. Let us cast down every idol and follow the word of the Lord with courage and humility. For a greater than Solomon is here, and his name is Jesus, the wisdom of God, the fulfillment of the temple, the King of kings and Lord of lords, to whom be glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen.